I'll call the special meeting to order. Will you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurt.
He's on vacation.
Oh, I forgot about that. Hayward,
Here.
Hill,
Here.
Sharp,
Here.
O'Loughlin,
Here.
Hannah.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Hill.
Second.
Seconded by O'Loughlin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Next on the agenda is the fiscal year 2018 budget amendment. I need a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Hill, seconded by
I'll second.
Hayward. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Now I need a motion to actually hold the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by O'Loughlin, seconded by
Second.
Scharf. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are now in public hearing. If there's anyone that wants to speak to the budget, or do you want to make a presentation, PowerPoint first?
Not on the amendment.
Oh, not on the amendment part. Okay, you just do it on the other. Okay, is there anyone that wants to speak on the amendment of the budget? Okay, any discussion? Hearing nothing, I will take a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral and written comments.
So moved.
Motion by O'Loughlin, seconded by
Second.
Hill. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. We will move on to fiscal year 2019 budget hearing. I need a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Scharf, seconded by Hill. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Then I need a motion to hold the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Hayward,
Second.
second by O'Loughlin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. We are now in public hearing for our 2019 fiscal year budget, and I believe you have a PowerPoint.
I have a very brief presentation for you. Real briefly, this is the rollback sheet. This shows the impact of this year's budget on residential and commercial property. Generally speaking, it's a nominal amount or a nominal impact. The $100,000 house has an $890 estimated, assessed value of $100,000 would be $890 versus $874 last year. There's a couple of things that have changed. The rollback has gone down, and so that does change the assessed value portion. Debt services, the debt service and employee benefits did both go up. Those are the most significant increases as far as line items within that. But again, very relatively flat on the property tax impact. In particular on the residential properties. This gives you an idea of where we've been since 2002 with our tax levy. You'll see the last 4 years, while they're not completely flat, they're in the same general vicinity. If we go back to 2005, it was still fairly high. It did come down, and we're still below where we were in 2005 in our levy. This is a very oversimplified statement of our revenues and expenses by department. You'll see that our overall budget is increasing from 10 million to 16 million on revenues. Most of this, almost exclusively, is because of capital projects or capital expenditures. And you'll see that, for example, water and sewer went from 3 million to 5 million. That's the wastewater treatment plant capital improvement project. That's the rehab of the wastewater treatment plant. For budget purposes, that is showing at $2 million. We know that we're working on reducing that. Currently, we're closer to the $1.2, $1.3 million and still working on finalizing those numbers. But again, for the budget process, it will show you the $2 million estimate that we had from the engineer. Likewise, in Public Works, we're looking at some fairly significant street projects. The revenues are showing much higher because of the bond issue that we've been discussing. On the expense side, it will follow suit. Again, the water and sewer, on the water and sewer on the revenues, we're tapping into primarily the wastewater revenue stream. There is a fund balance there for this project, so we're not bonding for the improvements at the wastewater treatment plant. That's coming out of our reserves that are for, being set aside for those improvements. But we have to show it as revenue because we're taking it out of the fund balance and putting it into the budget itself this year. Likewise, on the expenditure side, the $2 million shows up as added expenditures. Likewise, capital projects are increasing, again, with our street projects and bridge projects that we're looking at with the bond issue. Our revenues, just again, putting them into a graphic form, intergovernmental transfers, that's transfers inside our operation, shows up as the largest, or one of the largest, I should say, at 3.9 million. Other financing sources at 4.2, that's coming from our fund balances and our bonding. Taxes make up 4.7. Charges for service, 1.9 million, and the rest get much smaller. On the expenditure side, services and commodities make up the largest portion at 7.8 million. Capital outlay at 3.7, personnel at 3.7, and debt service at 1.8. Revenues by department, Public Works and water and wastewater are the two largest by far. Again, those are water and sewer because of our enterprise funds, and Public Works this year primarily because of the bonding. And our expenditures by department, Public Works and water and sewer, again, are by far our largest, public safety and debt service. So again, very simplified, trying to take the entire budget and break it down into something a little bit more tangible, but it is really glossing over the some of the details that you've been working on for the last couple of months.
Was there anyone who wanted to speak for the public hearing? Just give us your name and address, please.
Bear with me. Once you hit 40, everything goes downhill.
Tell me about it.
My name is Christian Lutz. I'm the Executive Director of the Independence Area Chamber of Commerce located at 112 First Street East. You might have heard this in mid-January as you started your budget deliberations for fiscal year 2019, but for the sake of those in the audience and for the sake of those folks watching, I do want to read the Chamber's position statement into the record. Hotel Motel taxes are a unique component of the American taxation system. It is the only tax levied upon guests staying in a community rather than the residents. The simple premise of this tax is to use the funds to support the promotion of the community to external parties. When hotel motel taxes are expended upon traditional and digital marketing initiatives, the goal is to encourage overnight visitors to stay within the hotels, motels, and bed and breakfast establishments within the community. The hotel motel tax paid by these guests replenishes the Hotel Motel Tax Fund. This is what the tourism industry refers to as putting heads in beds. The premise is defeated when municipal government opts not to support community promotion but diverts hotel motel funds to support other city services. While legal under Iowa code, this practice undermines the basic premise of why we have a hotel motel tax in the first place. Now that the community of Independence has a new brand, it is critical that we capitalize on the investment to bring the new brand to fruition. With the new branding, organizations within Independence can promote the community to travelers outside of Northeast Iowa with the explanation of why they should visit and stay overnight using a unified message. After all, overnight guests will shop in our stores, purchase fuel, and eat in our restaurants. It is a win-win situation for all parties involved. Community promotion cannot be done for free, nor can it be done in the environment we have now where hotel motel funds are not made accessible to external parties that have the drive and experience to promote Independence and its attractions and amenities to the traveling public. Utilizing these funds can stimulate creative enterprises, whether that be a new program, event, or festival, that could draw overnight visitors to Independence. Therefore, the Board of Directors of the Independence Area Chamber of Commerce strongly supports the practice of reserving a set percentage of hotel motel funds annually for use by external parties to promote the community in order to create events that will draw overnight visitors. Furthermore, we strongly recommend that such a percentage be meaningful in order to support an aggressive tourism campaign that can reach the traveling public, not only statewide, but also in neighboring states, with the goal of stimulating and increasing overnight visitation. This position statement has been endorsed by the Buchanan County Tourism Bureau, the Shop Historic Independence Retailers Group, Heartland Acres Agribition Center, Rush Park Motel, Riverside Bed and Breakfast, the Super 8 Motel, and the Comfort Inn and Suites.
Thank you.
So my name is Atul Patel. I have lived in this town for 13, 14 years and have built my business from this town. Currently I live in Cedar Falls, but my office address is still the 2000 First Street West, the Super 8 Hotel, which was my first hotel, to begin with. So I have seen this town grow. I have been very much, both my boys have grown from here, and luckily I have a couple of businesses that is contributing heavily in hotel motel taxes, with sales tax, or whatever we can, with the 2 hotels now that we own, including the Comfort Inn and Suites Hotel that we are heavily trying to renovate to kind of get it to the standards. We've been talking not only to this community, but to Cedar Valley as a whole, to all the communities, to figure out how this money that very much was put in place, was voted by the people, when the hotel motel lodging tax was put in place. Where the money is going, how is it being used? Let's look in the past, and like, since you guys are talking about budgets, we are very much in touch with Chamber of Commerce, with economic development, with tourism, and we are more and more finding that the money that's very much has been put in place to help travel, tourism, to bring more people in this town. Not only that, but this has a great economic impact, not only to some sector of the business, but to a whole community as a whole, to the county as a whole. And really, I would like to see you guys really take time out and look into where the money has been spent so far, how is it being attributed, and we are finding, like, currently, with little bit of help with Mr. Christensen and the past people, that 50% of the money, I know there's a loss set in what money goes where, and other 50 has to be spent still within the jurisdiction allowed, to be spent. And we really want you to make sure that the money has been assigned rightfully, justifiably, and put to a good cause, so that together we can bring more people to visit a town, to even have them stay more than one night, The more they stay, the more they come from out, and the more they're gonna spend. More they spend, more tax dollars gonna generate. So, looking at, I mean, I do not know if this is on your agenda or not, but have you guys have looked into this when you were discussing about the way the hotel motel taxes are currently attributed, for the fiscal year 2018 or 19, or I'm here trying to stress the very fact that we want a healthy discussion. While you guys are planning, I want to make sure that the very people that can promote this town gets their money due justifiably, not being used into something else besides the tourism, travel, or the very cause that the hotel motel tax has been used. That's my humble request to everyone, and trying to see if you guys can help us in this matter. I mean, I'm not, I didn't prepare my speech or anything. I just making sure that we together can do something about these taxes and allocate the fund that this town really needs. I am the end guy to benefit with people coming in, but together I see there is lots more to gain if we can promote this town somehow and use these tax dollars wisely. That's the one thing I just would like to convey.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Any other explanation or comments or specifics?
The only thing I would address is the hotel motel tax has been used judiciously within the confines of the state code that allow for where it can and cannot be spent. And we've looked at that each year in the 4 years I've been here. And so to address that concern, I can tell you it is being used appropriately and within the confines of the state code. Not 100% of the money has been put into any one place over the number of years it's been there. So, I'd be happy to sit down with you if you want to come in and visit with me. I can show you where it's been spent year after year. I know that there were times when I think when it first was initiated, it all went to one place. That's been a lot of years ago. It has been divvied up in different ways over the years.
I think one of the things that has happened, and in fact, I got an email today from an individual inquiring about how much we figured our industrial commercial rollback into our tax system. For those that aren't familiar with that, what the state legislature did is they're rolling back commercial industrial property just like they do on homes. Like Al's picture showed there, you're only paying taxes on about 55%, 56% of your assessed value on your home. So the problem comes in is that that's good for the homeowner taxpayer. The state's industrial commercial rollback is good for local businesses. It's good for local industry. What that does to cities and counties is it cuts your revenue. And one of the things that we've been very conscious of this year is, for some reason in the state, in Des Moines, they don't always take a look at what's going on locally. And so even though we were assured that the backfill, which was money that the state was putting into cities to help cover that industrial commercial rollback, is in all likelihood going to get cut. We figured it at not at 100%, but at about 84% this year. Now, even though we were guaranteed by the legislators at a session in Des Moines, they weren't going to touch it for the FY19 budget year, they've turned around and introduced a bill that that if it passes, will cut that tax rollback, backfill to 70% of last year. What that means is city government has less to work with. They're talking about cutting it even further for FY20, FY21. Part of what we've ended up doing this year, and a lot of you sitting here in the audience know, we have used a lot of the Hotel Motel Tax. We put a lot into the roofing project on the mill. We put a lot into the racetrack. We've put a lot into different projects in the community, trying to help those organizations. And as Al said, 10 years ago, one organization in the community got it all. And one of the things I find ironic is the director of that organization is now an individual in Des Moines who is also helping to cut the rollback backfill. So it's kind of ironic in that respect. But not trying to beat around the bush, knowing that dollars were going to be tight this year, knowing that services are something the community wants. One of the things we saw in our community survey is citizens want services. They want streets fixed. They want a good, strong Parks and Rec department. They want a good library. They want a good law enforcement protection. All of those things take financing. And so that's unfortunately what's happened with the Hotel Motel Tax is we have looked for ways to help the city budget under legal parameters that the law has. Now, personally, I think I would love to see us be able to continue with financing to the Historical Society, to the Chamber of Commerce, to all of those organizations. But as money gets tighter and tighter, the city has two choices. One, we can either cut services, we cannot work on things like streets. You'll notice that we're doing a fairly good-sized bond this year for street work. One of the big things in the city's community survey, citizens wanted their streets fixed. They don't like to run through potholes. They don't like to have, they want their sewer system to work. All of those things take money. So unfortunately, that Hotel Motel Tax, the last couple of years now, we've swung away from having that funding there for organizations that have put in for money to receive. Whether that can change in the future, I don't know. It's unfortunately, Des Moines keeps cutting. Des Moines says that your property tax is frozen at 8.1. I've talked with legislators and said, okay, if you want to cut stuff, then let us raise property tax and let us get voted out of office, but allow us to do things that need to be done in the community. But for some reason in Des Moines, they know best. You cut taxes, you don't fund things, and everything goes fine, and we leave at the end of May. And that leaves the city, that leaves the county, that leaves everybody else to figure out how to pay for things. That, in a nutshell, is what happened to the Hotel Motel Tax money. It had to be used for programs that fall within the legal guidelines that the state allowed, and there just wasn't enough left over for doing other projects this year. It's simple fact.
If you want to address us, you need to come up here so you can be on the mic, so the public will be able to hear you also. Yeah, that's fine.
And what you said is perfectly fine. All we just want to make sure is that 50% of the money that we want to use it towards tourism and towards promoting the town and whatever is what I'm after. I just want to make sure we have some say in the matter of where that money goes, because from what I'm seeing and reading, it doesn't add up. I don't even see that 50% is going all the way or it's being spent right away. One thing we just have to, I do business and we are all in the business. We cannot compromise on promoting the town or promoting the route of what's bringing town, because if we start deviating from that, it's got more. But I understand budgeting is one thing, we got to fund one thing, but we can't keep the stream of money coming in, because the less the money comes in, the more stringent will your budget be. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want to see those hotel motel tax or any taxes that generate because of these people or lack of people coming in brings less revenue to the town. I'm just making sure that the money is spent and it's been spent. And somehow the other budgeting has to be worked out, but we cannot compromise on. That's my feeling. It's my thoughts. How you guys put it together is another thing, but I want to see that 50% wisely spent now rather than waiting 2-3 years down the road, because we got to keep people coming, stay interested, focus on tourism. We have lots of these small entities around, the tourism, the meal and everything that thrives on people. If the people comes in, they bring revenue, then the revenue gets supported. I mean, you guys can support them, but if there's less revenue, things are gonna get tougher and tougher. I mean, that's what I'm seeing. If you do not, like if this money's been taken off, it's immediately, yeah, we want to do that, but every year we wait, I'm afraid that this is gonna have some long-term consequences. And that's what I'm just after. That at least that 50% money, let's put it to wise use, and I do not know if we as a citizen have any matter of saying the fact. Al said that I'll be more than happy to meet you, but when can I see you and before you put this on a stamp? You know what I'm saying? I just want to meet you before you put this and put it formally in place. So there is room for discussion if there's a time available.
I think that will be a challenge coming in to the public hearing to say, you know, I want to reserve the right to audit your hotel motel revenues and expenses before we have to adopt the budget, because the state also gives us a very stringent timeline to do that. So, you know, not to put you off on this, but it's not realistic at this point, because we have about 3 minutes before the next meeting starts that.
Gotcha. So if I
but-
come and see you tomorrow, it's still, I'm out of time?
I think what Al's saying is that for FY19, it's too late.
Too late. Okay, that's all I want.
For FY20, we can certainly work harder to keep some of that money. I think now that we know what Des Moines their plan is on the backfill, there are probably going to be some other services. We may be able to keep some of that funding for the programs you're talking about, but there may be other services with Parks and Rec and Library that we may not be able to provide if we keep 50% of that for tourism.
Thanks for your time.
Okay.
That was my only request. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think one item that would be very helpful, and we did request a breakdown of how the fiscal year 2019 hotel motel tax revenues would be dispersed. And we looked at the list and then compared that with Chapter 423 8.7, which outlines how the hotel motel tax is to be spent regardless of if there are any other kind of tax rollbacks that are pressuring the city budget. I think it would be helpful to have a clarification of that list, how those expenditures are in compliance with 423 8.7, because it's very specific that the first 50% is to be spent on the acquisition of sites for or constructing, improving, enlarging, equipping, repairing, operating, or maintaining of recreation, convention, cultural, or entertainment facilities, paying down the indebtedness of those facilities, or for the promotion and encouragement of tourist and convention business in the city or county and surrounding areas.
Well, I will tell the council that in line with the state auditor's review that we've done the last 4 years that I've been here, hotel motel tax have met the criteria set out by the state code, and it does meet the cultural and recreational requirement, and we spend well over 50% of the hotel motel tax for that specifically, however you define that. Now, if the argument is we don't like that piece of the hotel motel tax going to certain types of cultural, recreational promotion, amenities, what have you, that's a different story. But as far as meeting the state code, it does. And the state auditors have had no issue with the way that the council has invested that money in the last 4 years that I've been here. So I don't see an issue with it as far as how it's being spent. If the discussion is within that very broad base that Christian was kind enough to share with us, there's a discussion as to, is there a better place within that? That's open for debate, but not whether or not it's legal.
I would think we could provide where every projected dollar is going to go into what program for people. I think that's what they're asking too.
And we have.
Is there anyone else that wanted to speak?
I'm LuAnn Gates, and
You need to speak directly into the mic so it does come across.
I'm LuAnn Gates. And I've lived in the community since 1979. I was a school teacher here. Family grew up here. I've worked on Main Street since 2004, and there have been a lot of changes on Main Street, as hopefully you've all well noticed, during these past years. One thing I think that needs to be said, since things are being generalized so much, the important pieces of the puzzle are kind of being glassed over right now. And I think what needs to be done is there needs to be more discussion about these things with the different entities of the community so that some of these things can be worked out and allocated where best needed. And in all respect with what you said, Bob, about Des Moines thinking they know, sorry, my voice is shaking, Des Moines thinking that they know what's best for the smaller communities, it's kind of the same thing that's happening right here. The city is deciding what's best for these entities without direct discussion involved in that, in looking forward. There should have been time for that this year. And if we can't do that now, then I would suggest starting right away, immediately, on looking at that for next year. Because in repeating what's been said about the hotel and motel and the tourism too, we want to bring people to the community. When people come from different cities, from different states, even from different countries and shop downtown, that brings in a lot of revenue too, as well as the hotel motel taxes. And we want to keep it a thriving downtown community. We're doing a lot more community services with the trick-or-treating. That has just, blown up huge. Families really have come to look forward to that. And then the Jingle on Main and some of the other activities that we do at night or day, either one, is good for all, entire families, and they bring relatives to those kinds of things. But as you well know, everything costs money. And the best way to allocate the money in the places where it's needed, not to give up on fixing potholes or anything else that's needed, but to focus on another important piece of that puzzle and to do something constructive with that too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other discussion from the council? Then I would ask for a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral and written comments.
I would like to say, I think for FY20, we do need to
Start.
look more seriously at leaving an allocation We may have other parts that don't get done, but I do think we need to do that.
Just to reiterate, years ago when I was mayor, what I did was I changed that to a point where not everybody got it all. And if you guys were on the council at the time, remember what I did was let these entities or committees or businesses that would qualify apply. I set up a task committee within the community to go through them, and then there were 7 or 8 of them I put on there, and then they brought them back to me, and we all sat down and we talked to them. So I understand where you're coming from, I do. And at that time, if you go back into history, I started that program, I think, in 2011 or 12, and that's when we did the fairgrounds. We did different, everybody got a little chunk of the pie. And as you know, cultural, Park and Rec and Library, they definitely do qualify. And to the point where, I know what Al's saying, somehow we've gotten backed into the situation, or our funds are low, or whatever they may be. We need to reconsider what we've had to do. So, there again, I'm not saying, just look at that program I did to get some ideas, and I assure you, we do not want to leave anybody out. At that time, we had up to 10 or 11 applications, and when you filled them out, you asked for how much and what you're going to do with it, and then you did a follow-up as what you did do with it, because it's the people's money, of course. But I concur with everybody that we need to go back and take a look at it. Just want to let you know that I think there's options open. Thank you.
And I do think it's something we need to start earlier in the year. We've actually been working on this budget since, what, October, November?
December,
With several-
December 1st.
Several committee meetings or different meetings, council meetings and such, that's open for you guys to come during those times too. But we need to start sooner in the year than before the date that we're required to get it turned into the state. So,
And I think we do have to thank the city department heads and City Hall. The council told them what we would like the tax levy to be, and they worked very, very hard cutting a lot of things out of the original budget proposals. So that I don't think any of the department heads are very happy either. Al has taken a lot of, we say, disagreement, discussion from them on what they feel is necessary, but we have cut a lot of things from that original November, December proposal. So we are conscious of the community and trying to keep things affordable for people to live in the community too.
okay, I ask again a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral and written comments.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf, seconded by
I'll second.
O'Laughlin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Then we need a motion to adjourn this meeting so we can go into our regular city council meeting, which you're all allowed to stay for if you would like. We'd
So
appreciate
moved.
that. Motion by Scharf,
Second.
second by Hill. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The public hearing special meeting is now adjourned.
Can you give Roger